This is an infinite flying machine, and this, directly below me, is the Great Sky Island, the place where you start Tears of the Kingdom. But I didn't start my flight from the Sky Island, I started it all the way from the ground. But I didn't consume a single Zonai charge to get here. Pay attention to my energy cells for a moment. I'm about to run out of battery this high up above Hyrule. Instead of plummeting to the ground, I actually continue to gain lift and rise. The genius use of small wheels attached to propellers in this design allows it to keep an incredible amount of momentum even when the power is no longer going. And if you're wondering just how far you can take this, the answer is all the way to the sky ceiling of the map. Now I want to make it very clear that I did not come up with this design. All the credit here goes to BCJ Engineering, who was featured in a Top Gaming Plays video. All I've done is replace the wooden boards that they used with materials that will not break or burn. Okay guys, let's get right into how you can build this for yourself. Our first step will be to collect a few special materials that we'll need. So head over here to the Gemimik Shrine near Terrytown. For this build, we're going to need 2 propellers. So go ahead and fuse the propellers to either a shield or a weapon. After fusing one, wait around for a few seconds and a second one should respawn for you to fuse again. Next, we're going to head over to the Jonsau Shrine, which is over in the Lanayru wetlands. From here, we're going to be getting a yellow board that floats on water. Follow this path that I'm taking through the shrine and it will take you right to the board that we need. And then just like before, you can fuse it to either a shield or a weapon. For our last special material, we're going to head underground to the Mokuji light route. This is the light route right by the construct factory, and we're going to head here to the right leg depot. So go ahead and teleport to this light route. We're going to go get the low gravity railing from the right leg depot. This one will take a little bit more effort than getting those other materials, but I think its unique properties makes it well worth it. I'd recommend making a hover bike to get over to the right leg depot quickly, and then you can ascend to get inside. Okay, once you get to these elevators, you're going to want to pull out 2 stabilizers. Then go ahead and fuse both stabilizers onto the railing facing sideways. When you activate them, they should break off this piece of the railing. If you don't know this already, this railing is very special because it's extremely light and it has a very unique low gravity property. Watch what happens when I drop it. But we're actually going to need 2 of these railings for this build, so break the one off on the other side as well. Then what you'll want to do is fuse these 2 railing pieces together. It would kind of be a pain to fly these up out of the depths to the place where we're going to make our build. So instead, our goal is to just have these 2 railings fused together in our auto build history. That way, as long as we have 6 Zonai, we can auto build these anywhere. And the last thing you'll want to do before we get started on the build is make sure that you have 10 beam emitters in your inventory. If you don't have at least 10 beam emitters, you can come to either of these sky islands and go to these Zonai dispensers that give out beam emitters. Okay, we're finally ready to get started. So make your way over to Terrytown, either by going to the Rasatakawak Shrine right here, or if you're someone like me who constantly finds themselves in Terrytown to unfuse materials, you can just leave a travel medallion here. Before talking to Pellison at the Break It Apart shop, I'd recommend putting down a hard save. This way, if something accidentally happens and you lose your materials, you can simply reload the save to get them back. And then we're going to talk to Pellison at the Break It Apart shop to unfuse our yellow board and 2 propellers for the cost of 20 rupees each. As he unfuses them, you can go ahead and grab them with Ultra Hand and set them off to the side like this. And then as you get each piece, you can just fuse them together into a big pile. They don't need to look nice or anything, this is just to transport them down to the construction site below. You can carry these materials down by holding them in Ultra Hand and going down the rail cart. But as always, remember not to hit the rail cart with a heavy weapon or a fire weapon, because that will destroy it and make you lose all of your stuff. When you get down here, your first order of business will be to auto build those low gravity railings. Then you can grab a hold of them and shake them apart, because we're going to line them up side to side. I like putting the sides with the indents facing towards each other in the middle, but honestly it probably doesn't matter which way you choose to fuse them. The more important thing is that the bottom and the top are lined up straight with each other. Once you do get it straight and fuse them together, it should look something like this. You can give it a quick walk around and just make sure that it's straight on all sides. Okay, now let's look at everything that we'll need to build this infinite flying machine. It requires the yellow platform, 2 low gravity rails, 2 propellers, 2 small wheels, 1 steering stick, and 10 beam emitters. You can find the small wheels and the steering stick for free here at the construction site, but the rest you'll need to bring. To begin, we'll move the rails into a place that's easy to work with. Then go ahead and grab your small wheels and bring them over by the rails. The placement of these small wheels is critical to the build, so pay close attention to where I attach these. I attach these flush to the side of the rails, but not quite in the middle, more towards the lower half. If you want a more precise way of placing them, simply count the amount of cutout patterns in the face of the rail. The wheel should be placed between the 5th and 6th row from the bottom of the rail. Right there I actually placed it a little bit too low, so I had to shake to break the connection and fuse it slightly higher between the 5th and 6th indent. And the one on the other side should be fused in the exact same location as well. If you look at it from a top view, this is what it should look like so far. The reason why the wheel placement is so important is because if they're too low, the propellers will hit the ground and won't turn. Or if they're too high, the propeller blades will be stopped by the beam emitters. So you kind of have to find that perfect Goldilocks position. But the next step of fusing the propellers to the small wheels is much easier. If you hold the propeller a bit of a distance away from the wheel, you'll see that it wants to fuse right in the center, which is what you need. So just make sure they're completely centered on the small wheels and you should be good to go. Next, I'm going to move the yellow platform out of the way for just a moment so that we can focus on attaching the beam emitters in the proper place. The beam emitters are actually going to be our power source for spinning the propellers. But to build enough momentum to keep flying even when the battery goes all the way out, all 10 beam emitters need to be hitting the propeller blades perfectly dead on. As you see me doing here, you'll want to fuse the base of 3 beam emitters together like this. Then take 2 beam emitters and fuse their bases together. Now the trick is we're going to take these 2 and flip them upside down, and then we'll fuse them to the top of the other 3. They should fit snugly between the indents of the other 3. We do this so that all the lasers will be focused together in a small area. All of the horns should be facing the same direction, and it should look like this. Make sure all the beam emitters are even with each other, side by side. Take this group and set it off to the side for a second, while we focus on building the second group of beam emitters. The process is exactly the same. Fuse the base of 3 together, and then fuse the base of 2 together. Then you can grab those 2 and flip them upside down, and make sure their horns are facing in the same direction as the other 3. Place their heads between the spaces in between the other 3, and fuse. And if you did it properly, they should both look like this. The placement of these groups is pretty precise, so this is what I like to do to get them lined up properly. With Ultra Hand, you can actually push the propeller blade until it's completely straight. Once it's straight, you can make sure that your very last beam emitter on the left will hit the very end of that propeller blade. Once you're confident that you have it aligned, bring it all the way back to the end of the railings and fuse it. Before you proceed, you'll want to test out your beam emitters to make sure they are directly hitting your propeller blades. So go ahead and give it a whack and make sure that it starts spinning rapidly. If it doesn't start spinning rapidly like this, you want to break off the beam emitters, fuse them back into a group again, and try realigning. For the second group of beam emitters, we're actually going to have to place them at an angle. The reason for this is that both propellers need to be spinning clockwise in order to generate lift. There's actually a trick for aligning these. First, line them up parallel with the rails like the other ones, but then rotate them 45 degrees to the left. This is the angle at which they're going to be fused to the rail. So let go of them and then get directly behind them to grab with Ultra Hand again. Now we're going to use the same process to make sure that these group are lined up properly with the propeller blades. The propeller might get a little bit stuck, but just keep pushing until you get the blade to be relatively straight. I think this small wheel was having too much friction with the ground here, but I was still able to estimate where my farthest left beam emitter would be hitting the edge of the propeller blade. And just like that, you have your group of beam emitters fused at an angle, and you can test out both of them to make sure that they're working. Every single beam emitter should be hitting the blades at least some of the time. Next up, we'll take our big yellow platform and place it down perpendicular to the railings. We're going to fuse our steering stick to the platform next, so go ahead and grab it, and you'll actually see a small marking right in the middle of the yellow platform. That's where you'll want to fuse your steering stick, with half of the steering stick hanging over the edge of the platform. Then grab your railing, and we're finally going to fuse it to our board. It should be tilted forward at a 45-degree angle like this, and you can actually use the green shadow it puts on the board to line it up perfectly centered with the steering stick. And behold, you have an infinite flying machine in Tears of the Kingdom. Well, maybe you do. There's a lot that can go wrong with this build, so you're going to want to test it out to make sure that you actually built it correctly. When you get on, you don't need to hold any direction on the control stick. It'll take a few energy cells for it to get up to speed and take off. Once it does, it'll consume energy very quickly because of all the beam emitters. But as long as you built it correctly, when you do run out of batteries, it will continue to go as your battery recovers. Now currently, there's only one major drawback to this vehicle, and that's the fact that it is very difficult to maneuver. The only way you can really steer this thing is by holding to the right, and as soon as you see the vehicle start to turn, let go of the control stick. This will let you turn in small increments. If you hold right for too long, your propeller will stop generating lift and you'll fall out of the sky. But if you hold left at all on your control stick, you'll completely lose control and fall. So you're probably wondering why this is, and if there's any way that we can fix it. Well, it turns out that even though small wheels don't use battery, they are still controlled by a control stick. Whenever you try to turn left or right with a small wheel, it essentially tries to stop the inside wheel so that you can make a turn. Like you can see here, whenever I hold in the direction of a wheel, that wheel will slow down and then stop. But is there a way around this? I tried a ton of different designs to try and get this thing steering normally. Probably my best idea was to put the small wheels onto a construct head or a homing cart instead of directly onto the vehicle. That way they would be in control of it instead of the steering stick. But it turns out that that's actually not the case. Even when the small wheels and propellers were only attached to construct heads, turning still made the wheels stop. I also tried adding just regular fans to the corners of the vehicle, but they also didn't help much with the steering. I tried changing up the body of the vehicle with just the anti-gravity rails, but the problem there is that it becomes very unstable, and the amount of lift easily makes it flip forward and fall. So currently I don't have a good solution to the steering, but I'd love to hear your guys' ideas in the comments of how this design could be improved. Still, this vehicle is absolutely amazing, and I can't wait for you guys to get to try it out yourselves. If you guys enjoyed this video, leaving a like would help me out a lot. I have even more great ideas for builds in the future, so make sure you're subscribed so you don't miss out on any of these amazing builds. Thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you next time.